Hello, everybody. Welcome to OK Boomer. This is your host, David Knight. This is episode 8 with John Maclean on his book, Change, A Constant Challenge. So we have John in Sydney, Australia. Hey, John, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
How was that almond latte? Because I know you don't start this show without an almond latte.
Well, remembering that it's morning time here in Sydney, so it's a great way to start the day, as I'm sure many people know. Big fan of coffee. Maybe
Big
that's the
fan
next
of
sponsor.
I train for coffee. And we
Lovely.
have a very, very special guest and mutual longtime friend, Ms. Wendy Ingraham, otherwise known as Wing. Good morning, Wendy, or good evening. It's evening for us right here in Colorado.
Well, yeah, late afternoon.
Late afternoon, and you're just back from the horse farm. Thank you for feeding the horses and making everybody comfortable down there. What have you've got? Sheep, you've got horses. What else have you got down there?
Cats, dogs, sheep,
Awesome.
horses, cats, dogs, chickens.
Yeah, chickens, and you have to have some
Chickens.
mice. You have to have some mice running around because it wouldn't be a farm without
Wait,
mice.
ironically enough, my chickens are better mice catchers than my cats.
Well, there you go. Who knew? That's a new one.
Yeah, I see them running across the field with mice. So yeah,
You bet.
they're carnivores.
They're carnivores.
Truly are raptors running
Rap-
across
raptors.
the field.
Dinosaurs
Mini
incarnated.
raptors.
Mini raptors. Well, we do digress, but we are here to talk about John's book, Change, A Constant Challenge. And Wendy, it's so great to have you as a guest. You're our second guest here. We had Lou Friedland last week, who says hello when we told him we were going to have you on the show next. And we're just going to talk about all the fun things we've done together and dig into what motivates you and what got you into a professional sport. And I'm going to let John take the mic and lead away with some questions to get this ball rolling.
Perfect. Thanks, Wing. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
we just
Although
had- we
my
just had-
favorite Australian coffee is a flat white.
There you go.
Flat white? Yeah, we do
Yeah.
flat whites here.
Yep.
Do
I
flat-
love those.
We
Yeah.
invented them, actually. Well, we're having a bit of an argument with the New Zealanders, but we did invent the flat white.
You should
Oh.
take that credit.
Wing, I wanted to go back. Obviously, there's that wonderful photo that Dave's got up on the screen about you crawling to the finish line with Sean. Before we get to that, I was kind of keen to get an insight to you as a young girl and getting involved in sport. Can you share with us how you first got into sport?
Well, it was sort of ingrained in our community. Everybody did sports. I grew up in the country on a lake. If it wasn't sailing or soccer or tennis or swimming, everyone did sport, even water skiing, snow skiing. I happened to pick swimming. I like to challenge myself. When I was probably about 9 years old, my best friend lived on an island straight in front of our house. It was probably about 1.5 miles away. And the only way I could get to see my friend is if my mom gave me a ride out in the boat. Well, one day I just decided to swim there. I'm like, I can do this. So I swam to the island and played with my friend and then called my mom to come pick me up. Needless to say, she was furious. She's like, you could have gotten ran over by another boat. I'm like, but I didn't, and I'm here. Can you come pick me up? So I think it's just the urge of always challenging myself, doing things when people said you can't do it, proving them wrong. I always liked that challenge. And even today, I think I'm still, battling that challenge. People are telling me I can't do this and I can't do that, and I like to prove them wrong.
So, Wendy, you swam pretty competitively at a high level at college, right? Talk us through that. What did you get up to?
Yeah, so really I didn't start my competitive swimming until I was about 13 years old. I joined a swim team where my dad, he was a high-level sailor, went to Olympic trials, and his partner, one of his crew was a swim coach in our small town, Kalamazoo. And his friend said, well, you should have your daughter come swim for my swim team. So I joined the Kalamazoo Whitecats. And that's sort of when I started swimming, and then just never stopped. Went all the way to college at Michigan State, and then I swam out at Mission Viejo on the national team in the summer times, and did my Christmas training with John Urbanchek, who was actually the Michigan coach. Also, he was an Olympic coach, so yeah.
Awesome.
And when was
swimming
was
was
that
it.
transition? When was the transition from swimming into multi-sport?
That actually happened after college. I wanted to, stay fit and in shape, and my dad made a bet with me. We had a small triathlon in our hometown on the lake I grew up in, and he bet me I couldn't finish one. Bad bet on his part.
Yeah.
Bad bet.
So you ended up you ended up winning that triathlon, both male and female category, right?
Yes, I did.
So a
Yep. With
triathlon.
and I actually had a flat tire too because I didn't know how to change it. I mean, I just borrowed a bike.
So
awesome.
how did that then transition into Ironman? Take us on that journey.
It was a pretty slow journey, honestly. At that time, we had the Bud Light series, and I went and raced in Chicago, Mrs. T's, which actually I think it was Bud Light back then. It was a big race. It was probably the biggest one in the nation. And I qualified for Hilton Head, South Carolina, which was the Bud Light Nationals. And I went to that in 1986, I believe. Maybe it was 87. No, it was 86. Yeah, and that's where I kind of met all my core friends that I'm still with today. My business partner, and we represent athletes. Shannon Delaney, I met there, and a few other characters that still hang out in the sport. Mark Allen. I remember getting an award from him because I won my age group, and I told him, I go, one day I'm going to be like you. And
Wow.
sure enough, I didn't get the Nike contract, but I got some similar ones.
That's awesome.
So was Mark a mentor? I mean, how did that picture go from your first Ironman into your first time at Kona? Can you kind of share that?
Yeah, I would say at the time Mark was my idol. I appreciated his ethics and training, and he was always very cordial to everybody, no matter what position you were in the sport, from an age grouper to a sponsor to a race director. I just always watched him, and he was actually a really fabulous speaker. I do know that his wife, then Julie Moss, helped him on his speeches, I later on learned. My first Ironman was more like I wanted a trip to Hawaii, and in the process I had to do an Ironman. So
Well, there you
it was
go.
kind of like winning that when you go to a timeshare. You have to sit in the meeting for, half a day, but you get to go to Hawaii for 4 days. So
Well, there you go. And what was
Yeah.
what was your time? Do you remember? What was your first Kona?
I think it was I want to say it was 10:11.
Right.
Like not too godly bad.
Yeah, it's great.
But I remember talking to Scott Tinley at the Pancake Shack and asking what you eat at the turnaround. And he goes, and he was with a bunch of other pros, and I think they were just playing a trick on me. And they said, you want to eat a McDonald's hamburger at the turnaround on the bike. So the night before, I went and got a McDonald's cheeseburger and put it in my feed bag
Right.
for the turnaround. I got to tell you, that was the best hamburger ever. Oh my God.
That's
The
awesome.
fat. It was so good. The salt.
You do need something salty for sure. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's great.
So that used to be my nutrition.
So let's
So
go back to the
Awesome.
swim. Sorry, Dad. Back
Yeah.
to the swim. Presumably you were out of the water towards the front end.
Yeah, even back then, when I did my first Ironman in 97 or 98, or 89, sorry. It was myself, Eni Jones, and Rob Mackel, Wolfgang Dietrich. We were sort of the lead swimmers. And back then, we all went at once. All 1,500 of us went off at the same time. So, yeah, that was pretty fun. And then at that point, pros were always trying to line up behind me because they thought I'd carry them through the whole swim. I'd get Mark Allen and Dave Scott and Scott Tinley and
they'll all be tapping
couple
you
others.
tapping you on the toes, going, "Come on, pick it up, Wendy." That's great.
Yeah, one time Peter Reed, I think it was a year I wasn't racing or something, he goes, "Can I just pay you to do the swim so I can follow you?"
Quite a fish.
So
Yeah.
talk us about the transition. You're out of the water. You're on your bike. What's that starting to look like? And given that nutrition wasn't a big part. You got a hamburger at the turnaround, but how was that for you when you were starting to take off on the bike, and obviously some of the stronger cyclists were coming from behind? How did that go with your psyche and obviously nutrition along the Queen K?
Well, in the beginning, it was just sort of like I wanted to finish the damn thing because I wanted to get to the beach and, have fun with my friends. So, like I said, it was sort of like sitting in that, half day meeting. But then as I got progressed and got more serious and realized I had some potential in the sport, I worked with Bill Vaughn at Goo, and we kind of created a special goo that could get me through the race without eating a cheeseburger. And my training became more refined, my body became more refined, more efficient. And as it became more efficient, I needed less of those calories and, maybe some more potassium, more sodium, different other elements that was added into my nutrition for racing because the faster you go.
Gatorade.
Gatorade.
There you go.
Just a plug
Actually,
there.
I drank Pepsi.
That's
if you
right.
remember.
I do.
Pepsi.
Remember that.
Yeah.
So speaking of
Yeah.
Gatorade, I think we all ended up meeting through Gatorade at the NBA All Stars in Atlanta, where we saw Michael Jordan play. That was pretty special. That was a pretty special weekend.
Yes, that was.
And you called out
It
Snoop.
snowed, remember?
It snowed. You called out
There was that
Snoop Dogg.
snowstorm, and we couldn't find winter jackets anywhere.
That's because Snoop Dogg had all the mink coats.
I know he did, and we
Yeah.
tried to steal it from him.
Yeah, well, you did, to be clear.
Well, no, but you bet I couldn't do it. So there you have it.
Now we know. See, we want Wendy to do anything, just say she can't do that, and it happens. So that's that motivation
and I'll
streak.
do it.
Yeah, so that
Exactly.
was a special weekend. And then the three of us, if we remember, were a team at the Challenged Athletes, so CAF, down in Laguna. And I think I was the swimmer, and Wendy, you did the bike, and John, you did the run in your speedy chair. So I set you guys up for success. I know I came out of the water first and just get you guys in the lead.
Is that your memory, Wing, that they came out of the water first and the other guys hadn't yet gotten on their bikes? Is that what you recall?
I have no memory of this, but that's okay.
But that was a special weekend. Gosh, that whole Ironman fraternity and the CAF fraternity. We've actually got Bob Babbitt coming on soon, who I think was one of the founders of CAF, to talk about that. But that weekend was super special. John, you reminded us that another person that was there was Robin Williams, who was a huge supporter of CAF, a big cyclist. Wendy, you rode with Robin a few times, did you not?
Yeah, Robin and I, living in San Francisco, we did quite a few rides together. I think I was sort of sometime his wingman out there.
Yeah.
So Robin definitely was a huge supporter of CAF, and that's probably one of the biggest foundations that I really enjoy supporting, just the stories and the success behind their program, and getting kids out there and anyone, even you, John, what it's done for you. It's just been an amazing journey, being a part of that foundation.
Yeah, special people, special times.
I've got some
Absolutely,
great memories
they
of.
still are.
I remember Wing, Dave, and I were kind of sitting down in one of the diners within the Valencia, I think might have been the host hotel.
Yeah.
And we were in this booth, and we knew that Robin was next door talking to some people, because how can you not know that Robin Williams is in the room and obviously next door to you talking? So there was a healthy vibe. So Dave and I are given our, from Australia, so we're talking Australian, and he picked up on that. He came into our booth. He just took off on an Australian spiel for a while. It was hilarious. And then he just disappeared. So it was so wonderful to have that opportunity, because the movie Dead Poet Society was the movie that inspired me to go back to finally get it right in 1997. So it was wonderful to have a brief moment in time with him just to thank him for that movie. And I remember his response was, "Yeah, it was brilliant. I was in it." So that was the fine line.
At least he remembered he was in it.
Yeah. He just plonked down in this booth and goes, "G'day, Cobber, how's it going?" And he just went on to this 20-minute diatribe of speaking Australian. It was like, if we recorded it, it would have been just the funniest thing ever, because he was just on deck. and having a solo comedic performance for John and I. It was just hilarious. It was just a fun time.
Yeah, he
Wonderful
was
for him to
always
have his
really,
involvement. Sorry, Lee.
yeah, it really did, spur on a lot of other celebrities and brought it a lot of notoriety, just from his star power, and his passion as well. Regardless of where his position was on the social ladder, just his passion for it was really wonderful. And even today, his family goes back and represents CAF in his behalf, which is really great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What great stuff. Now, John, you weren't there. Thank goodness you weren't there. But Wendy and I met up in Lijiang, China, at another event put on by Murph Reinschreiber. So this is the Mile 7 Outdoor Quest. So this was it was either 3 or 5 day adventure race. It was all a blur. But it was up in the foothills of the Himalayas and these was it 5 days? It was so...
Yeah, the Jade Mountain Dragon, or the Jade Dragon Mountains, right?
Yeah, we had to kayak down the Yangtze River and the Dragon Gorge and do all this crazy stuff. And we're going through villages that had never seen white people, let alone white people on mountain bikes and running and inline skating. And it was just crazy stuff. But here's the funny inside story. So Wendy was captaining a team. I captained the Gatorade team. We were all amateurs, right? We were just daily work people that just thought we'd do this because I got a team slot because we sponsored the race. And so I had all my mates from Hong Kong and Australia, and we're going on this. We're going through this gorge, through this cavern, and you had to climb up, and ultimately you had to climb up this ravine and come out a hole in the ground. And unfortunately, the hole in the ground was about 3 inches smaller than my hips. And so I think Wendy was up above the ground. I had the team below me pushing me through this hole. I felt like Winnie the Pooh stuck in a hole in a tree, and Wendy between trying to drag me out and laughing. But I was literally stuck in this rock hole it felt like days, but about half an hour, I guess, until they finally stripped the skin off my hips and just pulled me through this rock hole. But I think, Wendy, that's when you had... Go ahead.
Oh, you had that Gatorade outfit on.
Of course, I was Gator Man.
You were Gator Man.
I was Gator Man.
Yeah, and so we were pulling the outfit, and it was made out of Lycra, and so the outfit was coming through, but David wasn't. I mean, you had to have such a snuggie from us pulling that thing.
It was uncomfortable for sure, but that was good fun. Well, that's the cool thing is when you get into sport like at that kind of level, everybody's challenging you to do stuff you really shouldn't be doing. But that was one of those events where it was like crazy that we actually finished it after 5 days. But good fun. Now, Wendy, I want you to focus on 1997. I mean, this is a famous Ironman moment where you and Sean Welsh were fighting for 4th and 5th place, I believe, right? And it was a brutal day, and you guys are getting to the finish line. Talk me through that. We can see the photos here on the screen, but one of them's you taking off to get to the finish line first, crawling, and Xian still realizing that she's collapsed and needs to chase you. So you both literally crawled to the finish line.
Yeah, even though that race was 20 some odd years ago, it's still pretty etched in my mind. It was probably one of the moments that defined me in Ironman. And any athlete, the persevere and determination to get to a finish line after 10 hours of racing. I think actually at that point we were at 9 hours something. So I just remember, and it even started way back at mile 13. I led that whole race until mile 13 on the run, and I had lost my sodium pills. And that was the one thing that I sort of needed to keep my muscles going. Nutrition-wise, calorie-wise, I was good. I was still clear and cognizant in my mind, but my body was just not functioning due to losing my little salt pills. And nobody had potato chips like I was asking for potato chips, anything, but there was nothing out there at the time. So yeah, I just remember telling myself, like, you can do this, like, you can overcome the cramping. You just have to find a way to get to the finish line. as I was rounding the bend, which you can see at the photo on the right, there's like a bunch of red flags. I was probably at that point, and I saw Sean fall down, and I'm like, I know I can catch her. Like, nothing's gonna stop me. And I just did this like praying mantis run, like everything I could do to just move forward. And then Sean was holding onto the railing, and she fell in front of me. And as I sidestepped to avoid tripping over her, like it was enough just to cramp up every muscle in my body, and I fell. And I tried to get up, but like my back was going into spasms, and I could see the finish line, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, after trying to get up 2 or 3 times, I'm like, I'm just gonna crawl. That's the fastest way to get there at this point. I don't think she's getting up, because Sean just kept falling backwards and over herself. And there's just like, I got this. So that's at the moment where, still I was clear in my mind, so I could think, clearly what the next step would be, which was crawling.
And then Sean started to crawl too, right? So there was 2 of you crawling together, and you got to the finish line first, and then she got across, and you guys celebrated it. And as painful as it looked, it must have been horrific on the inside for you.
Well, actually, the worst part were my knees, because that carpeting is not knee friendly.
Right.
At all. So, yeah, I just, when I finally crossed the line, I think I was just sitting there in pure exhaustion, and not that my body was exhausted. It's just like mentally I was exhausted. Like, that took so much mental power to get across, to, make it to that finish line. And I looked and I saw Sean, and that's where I reached out my hand, to pull her across the line. Because she was my friend. We went to a lot of races together and talk about some fun memories.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really tight group, right? You, Julie Moss, Sean, and there's probably 3 or 4 others that always congregate together. Probably even now, when you get a chance to catch up and reflect on what you guys did for the sport in terms of just leading the way for females to actually participate, right, and prove that you could do it and do it really, really well.
Yeah, because back at the time, we raced every race across the board. We'd be doing an Ironman one weekend, in Germany, and the next weekend we would be doing Nice, France, and then we'd go to Ireland for a ITU short course race. And so there's just really a core group of us, mostly Murphy's athletes, because he was our agent back then, would just all travel together. So it was like Fernanda Keller, Greg Welch, Paula Newby-Fraser, Wolfgang Dietrich, Jürgen Zach, Sean, Carol Montgomery, Karen Smyers, sometimes McKeely Jones would come along with us. But yeah, we had some good times traveling the world and exploring and racing every weekend. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hey, Wing, I wanted to jump in. I presume you've had a conversation with Julie Moss around her crawling to the line. I think it might have been 82. And then you and Sean crawling to the line. And again, those significant moments and so powerful in the history of the Ironman brand. Did you have those conversations with Julie about her experiences?
Yeah, we talked about it, a couple times. I mean, I think our experiences were the outcome was the same, but it was a little different. I think hers was just more of a training thing, not maybe having the miles behind her, because it was also new. She did hers for a class project, whereas I was doing that for the paycheck. So it was a little different back then, but absolutely, we defined the sport and kind of this logo, anything can happen, and if you really put your mind to it and some determination and dedication, you can do an event like the Ironman.
So that leads to, like, Wendy, there's a lot of people listen to this, and hopefully some young female athletes who are trying to define themselves. Like, what's the words of advice? Jump into the mentor shoes that I'm sure you do very well for lots of athletes around you and the ones you manage. But what's kind of like the big words of wisdom, top 3 or 4 things to think about as a young athlete trying to get somewhere?
Well, I think, and John will probably agree to this because, I mean, look where you're at today. You definitely have to be patient with your process, patient with what you believe in. And John, you've done some very incredible things, over the last couple of years. And here, I'm now rehabilitating horses through kids with depression and anxiety, and we get setbacks along the way. And it's the same when you're young. You have to be very patient with yourself, and you have to be able to adjust to change, on a turn of a dime. Like, you could get injured, but that doesn't mean you're going to go back out and run 100 miles. You just have to be flexible enough to readjust to the plan and believe that it's going to work. Sometimes it takes another extra 3 months, but if you believe in what you want to do, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we've all set ourselves goals that we may not have achieved the first time around, and it takes a time to dig deep, reflect, learn and grow, and give it another crack, as they would say in Australia. Give it a crack, John.
Yeah, the thing that kind of sticks out for me, I always like to go back to the origins of a driver. And David and I had a conversation a while back about motivation. This piece about us motivating ourselves, and I meant for me back in '94 watching Welshie win first non-American, and John Franks being the first wheelchair athlete. That was a huge motivator. But when I look about on your story, Wing, about your dad saying, here's an event and you can't do it, that was a huge motivator for you externally to go, I prove you wrong. And maybe that same mindset was the one within you when you got to that point with that race with Sean going, I got this. And everything in your being got you to cross that line. So I think back to the youth, find a dream. And for you, I love the bit about I'm going to swim to my friend's place because it might be quicker than getting in a car or doing finding another way. So I like this piece about following dreams and believing in yourself, building teams to support, and you'll go however far you're going to go. But again, that image of you for me, because it took me 3 times to get it right, and '97 was my year. I didn't get a chance to see these images until well after, because obviously I finished a lot later than you. But I think back to kids and having dreams to believe in. These images are one for the ages. To young girls getting out there and wanting to do a triathlon. A huge motivator is to continue to try your best, because I think that's key, right? I mean, you're not always going to win, but I think you win by crossing the line or chasing your dream.
Yeah, I agree. And I do remember, John, you racing that year, because after my race, I went back out and cheered people on after I went home and got my McDonald's cheeseburger. And
And Pepsi.
yeah, and my Pepsi. Yes, and then I was back out on the race course cheering people along, that were out there well into the night. But I do remember seeing you out there, and it was an incredible sight, just seeing you just power through something so hard. I mean, it's hard enough, doing Ironman with 2 legs and 2 arms, but let alone what you've done is really paved the way for a lot of people. I mean, you look at Chris, who just the first Down syndrome kid that did it this last weekend in Florida.
That was amazing. I followed that all
Yeah.
day. It was just incredible. The strength to do that.
And you're sort of the pioneer behind, telling people with challenges that there are no challenges. You just will find a way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, Wing. I think there's that beautiful piece about being inspired by others, and watching you race and watching Welshie and all those guys really motivated me to want to see myself as being equal. And my platform was Ironman. Is it possible for a wheelchair athlete? I don't know, but let's try. And it took me 3 attempts to get it right. And it's wonderful that with you and others that I call friends today, I would never have thought that when I was watching a television, aspiring to one day get to Kona, that we have opened up the doors for others. And seeing that young guy Chris, again, goosebumps, right? Thinking, I just love that his coach or mentor that was with him along the way and driving him towards that finish line. It kind of makes us all come back to being equal. So it's wonderful that the sport's evolved to where it is today. And and to get all the stories. So many people will be inspired by wanting to chase their dreams by, watching Chris cross the line on the weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of fun. Sorry, Wendy, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, that's the wonderful thing about Ironman is you have so many countries and so many people and so many different stories, but there's always that one end story, and that's getting to the finish line and completing your journey. And that's what's so special about it. There's no division. There's no, I don't know, hierarchy or anything. It's just everybody out there pursuing their dreams and their goals and making that finish line, and everyone's out there supporting them, which is just absolutely amazing. It just shows how you can pull the world together on one start line and one finish line.
Yeah, awesome. It's great to see.
There's no political implications in there at all.
Implications?
Yeah,
Thank goodness for that. We've had enough political implications recently. But on that note, hey, look, guys, what a great session. Really appreciate you both. There is so much depth here and inspiration to people out there on what you guys have accomplished, and just privileged to have been on the start line and the finish line with both of you at certain areas. And coming up, John, what do you think? We should get Welchie on this call at some point. He's got a good connection as an Aussie brother and world champion. And Bob Babbitt is coming up, I think, in 2 weeks. We've also got Bob Murray, who was the head scientist at Gatorade Sports Science Institute. So invited him on. Wendy, he will talk to us all about electrolytes and making sure the body has enough potassium and sodium in the body. But good fun, everybody. Please.
Oh, yeah, I remember that Gatorade lab. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. They do a great job. So
yes, they do.
Hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. Let's push this out. Let's get more people involved with OK Boomer. And John, it gets back to the book. So there's a link here in the bottom here about buying John's book. 64 pages, about an hour read. It'll change your life, because change is a constant challenge. So get into that. We're going to need to sell more books. Okay, guys.
So good. Well, thanks for
thank you.
coming along.
Well, I appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to tell my story again, and it's always wonderful being a part of what you're a part of, John. You're such an inspiration to everybody, and David, I'm really happy that you live like 10 miles down the road, and I still haven't seen you.
Right. Time to
we'll
get some skiing or snowshoeing in this winter. How's that?
We'll definitely get an adventure or two in this winter.
Right.
We'll make one, but always great seeing you guys, and you definitely hold a special place in my heart, and it's just always great to see you.
Awesome, we'll do that. And Joshua, thank you for being behind the scenes guy, putting this all together. And Joshua is actually going to teach me how to snowshoe, so he's very excited about that. Anyway, over and out, guys. Till next week, have fun, be good, change the world, change yourself, be better tomorrow, better than you were today. And we're great.